I'm ready.
Are you?
I am.
Oh, we're actually live now. I don't need to whisper.
Oh, we're live. Yeah, we're live. Yeah, it happened. It happened when you were kind of dozing off there for a little bit.
Is it? I'm used to it.
Hey, so what does your hat say? It looks like a broken down like bubble.
It's like the question mark.
Okay.
There's also CP.
I see that now. I see it.
And if you look really good, you'll see a cross.
Oh, snap. That is awesome. Come on, man. That is good. I love it.
That's one of mine and Brian's buddies' church. Actually, right up the street.
So
called Connecting Point, and I thought it was a great design, just like a true marketer.
That it is. That really is cool. It really does look like one of those speech bubbles that's kind of broken down the middle.
Yeah,
it's got a lot of cool looks to it. Anyway, GJ,
thanks. Thanks.
You
I had nothing to do with it.
Well, okay, you're wearing it. You're making it look good. You spent a week and you changed up what Jesus said when he said, I'll make you fishers of men, and you reverted back to being a fisherman. So talk to us about your experience catching some fish.
Well, first of all, let's be very, very clear. I am the worst fisherman in the entire world. My mother-in-law for Christmas gave me a little kid's fishing pole from one of the movies, and so it's about this big. And obviously took it with me all the way to Minnesota. So we're in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. Very pretty, very, very pretty, very pristine lake. And my wife's family goes up there every year, and so for Christmas that was their Christmas present to us. We'll take care of everything. All you got to do is get here and bring whatever you need.
Oh,
and
nice.
So that's what we did, and 3 of our kids went, and Logan brought his wife, which was a smart idea.
Okay, I'm sure there's a story there somewhere.
If he'd come without his wife, that'd been bad.
Yeah, probably.
So we go out fishing. They have like northern pike, muskie, which is like a bigger northern pike. I mean, they get big. Bass.
Oh, they got some bass.
And so I caught the world record bass.
Wow.
It was this big.
And there's no pictures?
Dude, I sent you pictures.
Oh, none of a world record bass. You didn't. I saw a.
Dude, mine did a world record because I caught them.
Your world record?
Dude, it doesn't matter. It's all semantics.
It's all relative. It's all relative. It was big enough.
About a 5-pounder, which is pretty good sized bass.
That's a good sized bass. Yeah.
Got 2 of them. One of them was so big we threw it back. For real. My mother-in-law says they're not good eating. Throw it back. I'm like, whoa! We got to mount this baby.
Why would a big fish not be good eating?
Says it just when they get that big, they're very old and it just doesn't taste as good. It tastes more fishy. So we kept the other bass. I made sure so we fried some of that baby up. I did not fillet it. I had nothing to do with it. I did witness it. So our son Logan and my mother-in-law did all that, and I was like, thank goodness. Praise Jesus.
My mouth's watering. Well, you were a fisherman this past week, and now you're back to being a fisher of men and women. So
true. But my wife, Alita, she caught a 30-inch. And then as soon as we left, my mother-in-law caught 2 40-inchers, northern pikes.
You know what? That's because
hey,
like mama, like daughter. Mama had to show daughter that she was still better than her.
And fishing, she definitely did, no doubt. And by the way, hey, so I don't know if I'll ever fish again. I don't know if I can top what I caught. Normally, I have to take the bait out and say, "Hey, here, take a picture," because that's all I got.
The bait. Well, hey, that actually
Seriously.
reminds me of something when I was growing up. My dad, he was like, because I was a teenager, I was rebellious, and he said,
You
I
are.
guess, but I still am. One of the last spankings he ever gave me, he looked at me afterwards and he said, "Son, one of these days, you're going to be faster than me and stronger than me. But today is not that day." So I can see Alita's mom going, "Alita, one of these days, you're going to catch a fish bigger than me and you're going to be stronger than me. But
No,
today is."
I don't think she will. I don't think that day's coming because she says I won't bait the fish or bait the hook, which we use these. I don't know what they are, but they're the fake things.
Lures.
Yes, that's what it was. That's how much I know. Yeah, seriously, I've caught 2 can openers. I'll do hold the world record in the ocean and in a mainland creek or
Mm-hmm.
creek, and some people say creek.
Crick.
I've literally caught an electric can opener. I caught a in the Mexico off the Caribbean.
Mm.
Got an El Destapador. I think that's how you say it. So it's like one of those manual with the long wood handle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to catch fish, I'm not the guy. And Lita, she goes, "I won't touch it." And then her mom's like, "Hey, you got to take a picture of that." I mean, her mom's all excited. "You got to take pictures." "I'm not touching it." So she's holding it up. And the way she was holding it up, it didn't look as big as it was. And her
Yeah.
mom said, "No, you got to hold it." So her mom got in there and held it up for her as she's like got the little thing that you hold them up with and weigh them.
Oh man.
So yeah, we suck at fishing, but we had a good time. Saw a bunch of bald eagles.
Oh yeah.
That was impressive.
They are super impressive. Love those things. As a matter of fact, up in Alaska, little known fact, they're like pigeons up there. They nest in the hill. Like when we pulled up in a cruise ship one time and saw in Skagway, and we looked on the side of this mountain where the boat was, and it was just bald eagle nests all over the side of the mountain. They were coming up, and like pigeons do, they'll land on the end of the side of the boat. These bald eagles like land on the side of the boat, just flying around, and they were huge. It was amazing.
Yeah, they saw food, and it was you.
Yeah, it was me. It was all the free food. It was all the free food on the ship. Hey, so okay, we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. But real quick, just keep my wife in prayer. She's lower back hurting her, and got to keep her in prayer. For everyone that's out there in the world listening to this, pray for my wife. Keep her that she will be healthy, that her back will be healed, and everything will be fine. So, just want to throw that out there for her. But hey, we've got. I'm going to start off blazing. That's what I'm going to do.
And you were like a machine this week.
By
the way, we're still on air. And by the way, ENDTIMES.chat.
ENDTIMES.chat. And I got this cool little ticker. We're on True Social. We're on liftable.tv at ENDTIMES.chat. We're on Telegram at ENDTIMES.chat. We can find ENDTIMES.chat on Spotify and iTunes podcasts. I'll let that scroll a couple of times. But I'm going to start off blazing today because here is something that is happening right down the street from me. And I'm just going to say that the smoke is real. The smoke is back. And the fire is real. The fire is back. But this right here, this fire is called, interestingly enough, the mosquito fire. And about 2 days into this fire starting, there was this influx of these huge mosquitoes that happened in our area. And everybody's talking about them. And they're biting mosquitoes. They're the kind where they land on you, you can see them. And when they actually stick their whatever into you, you can feel it. It's that like
right to your arm.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. But anyway, this fire is called the mosquito fire. On Friday in the morning, it was about 14,000 acres that had burned. By Friday afternoon, it had doubled in size. It was over
Wow.
20,000 acres. Now it's a little less than 50,000 acres. So this right here will just kind of show you a little bit about that. And then this will give you a little idea of some of the fires we've had here over the last, say, 10 years. The King Fire was the largest one in this area right here. We had the American Fire, Westville, and then the Government Fire. I'm tempted to say a joke there, but I think I'll save it. But if we're not here next week, ENDTIMES.chat. But this little town right here called Forest Hill, they have evacuated about 4 or 5 towns. We have a couple friends up in this area that have self-evacuated because they know that the fire is prone to move very quickly. And this kind of gives you a little outline of it for real. But I wanted to show you where it was in relation to where I am. I'm not sure if I can find it in here, but check that out. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we were seeing. Tanya was driving home on Friday, and she was looking up. I couldn't see it where I was because I'm down in the valley. But she was driving home, and she saw this cloud right here that you're looking at. She saw both of those in the distance and said, "How close is this fire?" Well, this fire, as the crow flies, is about 30 miles away. And the winds have shifted back and forth, and air quality has been horrific. But I do want to show you because I think sometimes, and I know this is true for us in this country when we see tragedies happen in other countries, that it's when you see those tragedies, when you see videos of them happening in other areas, you think to yourself, "Wow, that doesn't even seem real. It seems surreal." But I want to show you guys a video of what it looks like in that area. So this is somebody that's driving through, and some of the devastation that has been happening over there. So that right there is the picture of one of the sides of the mountains. But I don't know how many structures so far burned, but they call it fire season now, and it happens here almost every year since the year 2014. So pretty crazy what's happening over here. Pretty crazy.
Pretty hot. And it's high temperature.
Yes, we actually had, okay, we talked about this last week, but I actually felt it, record-breaking temperatures in this region. And I walked out to my truck that's parked in my garage, not my garage, but outside my garage. And my driveway usually gets 10 to 15 degrees hotter than it is outside. Well, when I stepped in my car, I looked down and the temperature read 125 degrees.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, how hot was the inside of the car? So if the outside of the car is registering that, what is the inside of the car registering? So it must have been close to 145, 150 inside the car when I got in. So anyway, any thoughts, TJ, about that?
That's a new diet plan.
It is a new diet plan. I don't want that diet plan anymore.
All right. So why are we talking about fires?
You tell me.
You tell me. I asked you.
We're talking about fires because
it's your fire, bro.
It's not my fire. I'm not claiming it. I didn't start it.
Yeah. You and those skeeters.
We're talking about fires and earth news and the different things about the earth news because Jesus said to us in Matthew chapter 24, also Luke chapter 21, he said, we need to be watching what's going on in the world. There are signs that happen. And actually, one of the things I want to make reference to is the fact that when God destroyed mankind as we know it, I'm not sure if I should say judged mankind as we know it back in Noah's time, he did that with floods. So the rains came, the flood waters rose, and he kind of rebooted everything. So when I think about that and what he actually said is I promise never to destroy the world by flood again. But we do know in Revelation that in Revelation during one of the judgments that their world will be destroyed in some areas will be destroyed by fire. Whether it's through a volcano, whether it's through forest fires, whether it's through a meteor or some kind of asteroid, which is why we talk about those all the time. Because one of the judgments that comes down from heaven is the fact that it looks like a mountain coming down out of the sky. I happen to believe that's kind of like the asteroids, but we don't know for sure. There's also, when we take a look at the sun, moon, and the stars, John in the book of Revelation talks about the stars falling out of the sky. I happen to think that those are meteors. They could be satellites, I guess, but satellites usually aren't big enough to really kind of have that kind of effect. But you have a meteor shower, and they're coming in like a flood. So that's why we talk about it, GJ. That's why we talk about it.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification, because I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, you wouldn't be the only one. I'm sure there's other people that are out there thinking the very same thing. Hey, so the other thing I had on Earth News before I kind of release you on some things that you posted, even though you probably don't remember most of them.
I probably don't, and I got a feeling we're gonna be shaking for a second.
Yes. Okay. So just yesterday, there was a massive, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, a massive 7.7 earthquake in Papua New Guinea. Now, this earthquake was 50 miles down, which is a long ways. But just to show you the impact of what was happening in one of the towns in Papua New Guinea, we have this video. Sorry for the noise. This person's going nuts in the background, of course. But just check that out. That is actual asphalt and ground moving as we're watching it. And towards the end of this video is about 2 minutes long, but I can fast forward a little bit. Towards the end of this video, what you're going to see is, well, first of all, you see this wall come down on the side over here. You see other stuff falling in the background. There's that wall just fell. But you can see how the earth is just a massive movement. And while we're watching this, oh, see, that guy jumped over. While we're watching this, oh, look at that guy. Look at that guy. He was like on this little island of asphalt. While we're watching this, one of the final judgments that happens, I think it's the 7th bowl that gets released with the final judgment that God pours out on the earth. It is an earthquake like the earth has never seen, leveling mountains. But check that out. You can see how bad it's gotten just in the last few minutes of that earthquake. That earthquake lasted for, I think, a minute and a half. And this was the end result. Just massive. Check that
That's crazy. Well, the other thing is that there was 4 or 5 other 5.0 and above, 5.0, I think, to 6.7 earthquakes in that region after this one.
Yeah, and the church look at that car up there, just kind of floating. It looks like it's almost surfing in on a wave of asphalt.
What kind of car is that? Oh, please don't say it.
I'm not going to say it.
You know what I was thinking. You know what I was thinking.
It's not going to be said. No, anyway, so I thought this was really something we should check out. And I know earthquakes, we talk about them a lot, but we don't really see a lot of the massive effects of what happens like this. This is just a massive earthquake. If you remember the one that Haiti had several years back that killed hundreds of thousands, I think hundreds of thousands of people, if it were that much, I think. It was incredibly devastating. Wasn't that like an 8.0 or was that higher? I can't remember.
It was at least an 8.
Yeah, at least an 8. And so we don't know the reports yet of how many people have passed away in this earthquake. So got to pray for the people of Papua New Guinea, also called New Britain in some places over there. Got to pray for them. So be safe if you're over there and you're able to listen to this broadcast. As a matter of fact, I'll probably try to boost it in that area this week so that they can know that we're praying for them. Be praying for them over there. So, GJ, crazy, man. Crazy. Oh, the church we're going to talk about today, the Church of Philadelphia.
The Brotherly Love?
The Church of Brotherly Love. There's also a city in the United States called Philadelphia. I think we all know. But the church of Philadelphia, that city actually experienced an earthquake that happened in AD 17 that threw them in a tizzy for years because they were very, very scared and afraid. By the way, when I showed you that picture,
is that a technical term? Tizzy?
A tizzy is a technical term. By the way, I'm not sure if you noticed it or not, but on one of those pictures I showed, there is a town in California called Volcanoville. I just saw it today. I'm thinking, I wonder why it's called that.
Well, I don't know if you got anything on volcanoes. I actually went like, how many active volcanoes are actually erupting to some degree around the world? 48.
Right now, 48?
48 are still erupting and doing something. It doesn't mean that you're seeing the lava flow. It is actually active doing something, though. 48 of them around the world. So that number, which we've talked a lot about over the last 2 years, isn't going down. I mean, it's like staying right at the same, and every now and then one will pop up and do its thing. And so 48 active ones. I mean, think about all around the world. So what you were saying earlier, or how that could impact the world or a region, unlike anything we've ever seen, I truly believe that's going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt.
I just hope it's after we're gone.
Yeah, me too. I think that you got a couple of those videos I sent you from Iceland when the the fissure was going off, and how people were just it's like sitting there with a picnic basket watching it.
You caught me off guard on that one, because I just, anytime I think of Iceland, I just think of those people playing volleyball next to me. So I apologize. By the way, my cough is much better. Whoop, whoop.
Hey, all right. Well, I sent you a video where the guy's literally showing this explosion happening on the top of this mountain, and they're all standing there, and the guy's like posing, and then all of a sudden you hear him say, "I think we should go down the mountain now." You think? Maybe it shouldn't have gone up there to begin with.
Yeah, anything for the shot.
They're safe. GJ, this is all you. Wars and rumors of wars. Tell us why we talk about this, and then let's lead me into what the heck this is.
Well, we talk about wars and rumors of war because it says in the end days that there will be wars and rumors of war. So that's why we talk about it. And every week we always have something. Obviously, China, Russia, something in the Middle East has always got something. And of course, there's other countries around the world. And then you've got China and North Korea. And I don't remember which this one was tied to, because I know North Korea, and I might have put, and I know I posted it late, but North Korea is flexing their muscles saying, we have nuclear capability and we feel like we have the ability to be protect ourselves. So they're just putting it out there front and center. So I don't remember this one. I remember the photo, but I don't remember the article on this one. So
no, that was it. It was North Korea was threatening automatic and immediate nuke strikes if they were provoked. They were showing this, but they were also came out and said, if we feel that anybody in our upper echelons of government are threatened in any way, we will take automatic and immediate nuke strikes if provoked. So I'd say that was a pretty clear and present threat, if you ask me. But
very much so.
Yeah, wars and rumors of war.
And even if they don't do it, I mean, again, the rumors.
Absolutely. Well, I do have two things to show here for the next thing that you posted, and then I found this one actually. But this happened.
What you're saying is that you found something that was better than what I posted, so you had
no. As a matter of fact, no.
You're big leaguing me. Whoa!
You're gonna. Hey, who's calling?
Whoa.
Is Tanya calling you?
Hey.
Is Tanya calling
you?
Right
lost audio there. Yes, Tanya called.
Well, this
she can't get through to the show or through to you. She's calling me. No, it wasn't her. Wow, well, that's the first time. Don't stop
believing.
All right,
hold on.
Moving on.
Sorry, had to do.
Moving on.
Yeah, this past weekend, we actually I don't want to say celebrate. We commemorated a massive event.
Commemorate's a good word.
Yeah, commemorate is a good word, I think. But this is really yours. I'm going to show that I saved your actual picture for last on this one because it was so good. And I'll pop it up in just a minute. But GJ, tell us what happened this past weekend, 9/11. Just talk to us about what you felt on that day, what was going on in your mind. And I'm sure just like me, you probably thought, wow, end times are real. This is a very real thing. So Tell us a bit about this.
Well, a couple things, and if you study prophecy, there was things that were actually prophesized that something like that would happen in New York City. And I'm not talking politically or government or anything like that. This was prophesized in the Bible that something would happen like this in the Bible in New York City. And you say, well, why is that? Because a lot of New York City is a hub, one of the main cities of the world that's a hub. So everything pretty much flows through New York City, good and bad. Pick a topic that flows through New York City, almost in its entirety. And then, of course, you have, the cities on the West Coast. And so anyway, obviously 21 years ago, we had the attack on the Twin Towers that, obviously collapsed. And, so I think everybody knows that story. So I don't really need to tell that story. And there's just a lot of things around that from a spiritual standpoint, and a lot of so yeah, I did post that one, and we'll come back to that. That's another reason why I chose this hat today, by the way, because there's a very subtle symbolic. Maybe you can see it. I see it clear as day.
Oh yeah,
some people won't see it. Some people just see two towers and the sun, and we can talk about it. So anyway, when that happened, judgment would come upon the United States, and we could either, like in the Bible, we could turn towards God or we could turn away. And as we share every week, it looks as though we have turned away. I don't believe we've completely turned away from God, but every week we got something that's more evil, more in our face, and we're really coming to a point of exposure, which we can talk about that. Hopefully you post that one on 5783, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So anyway, this photo was taken that morning on 9/11. So 2000, September 11, 2001. And when I see that, it's like there's a cross right there. So I see it. Little did anybody know what was to happen. And then the other thing that was like, okay, you've got the sun coming out across this side of the buildings, which that can't happen unless it was photoshopped, that wouldn't even be a reflection because of how far they are away. So I believe, from what I see when I see that, and this is just in my spiritual, somebody could say, oh, just prove it. Spiritually, though, I believe God was saying, there's a sign right there. And I see the cross.
I did see that. Isn't that, though, from the other side? Oh, no, that's right. You're right about that. You had to Photoshop that in. I was just thinking about that because even if you're on the Queens or on the New Jersey side looking that direction, the towers were not in a position where you could see it that way. They're very, very good, GJ. I didn't catch that actually at first.
Thank you. Hopefully this is recorded and I can go back and listen to what you just said. Thanks.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure
I feel better about myself.
Well,
I'm a big fisherman now. I see things now.
Yeah. Well, that day for many of us, actually across the world, was a day that will live on in infamy. There's a lot of question marks around that day still, and about actually what actually happened. And I know that there are quite a few thoughts, and we'll never really know the truth, I'm sure, unless they're revealed to us. But I will say that day specifically for me personally was a very impactful day, because that was the day that my mom and I reconciled after about 14 years of my holding a grudge. So that actually was what spurred me to write the book later in life. So that day will live on for me.
What is that book, just so everybody knows?
Oh, it's called The Lost Art of Relationship. You can find it at lostartbook.com. Maybe I'll pop it up here a little bit later, but yeah, lostartbook.com, Lost Art of Relationship. So anyway, we just commemorated that this past weekend, and we still remember all those that were lost in that over 3,500 people were lost that day, and many, many families impacted across the world. So anyway, we actually have another wars. I put that in the wars and rumors of wars because of the fact that it was a terror attack against this country back in 2001. But we also have something else. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you posted it or if I did, but I'll pop it up and we'll see. Here we go. This is not it, but I'm going to move it to the right.
It was you.
It was me. It was me. So this was from the Times of Israel, and this is the Prime Minister of Israel.
It was you.
What's that?
It was you.
Oh, it was me. I thought you said something else. I'm like, GJ, you can't say that on the air.
What?
So Prime Minister Lapid.
It's a G-rated show.
It is a GJ rated show. So standing next to an F-35 fighter jet, Prime Minister Lapid issues a warning to Iran. He said, and I quote, "Don't test us. If Iran continues to pose a threat," he also added, "it will discover Israel's long arm and capabilities." So there's a lot of posturing going on. I mean, first of all, you got our own administration who does a speech with a black and a red background with two Marines in the background. First time ever in presidential history it's ever happened. Now you got Prime Minister Lapid standing in front of a fighter jet doing what he's doing. You got Putin's over there in Russia still acting like a crazy person. And Ukraine, they just had a massive win, actually, in the war that's happening over there. I'm not going to mention that today, but they had a massive win over there for them.
You got
China. I did. You got China doing their thing. You got North Korea doing their thing. I mean, it's just insane. Taiwan. I didn't even see anything actually in Taiwan's news. Did you see anything in the news for Taiwan this week?
This is the first week I've not seen anything on between China and Taiwan in the 97 weeks we've done this.
You know what? That's probably the truest statement I have ever heard. But yeah, there's a lot of this posturing going on, and it's absolutely insane. This is absolutely insane. All right, we got to move on to leading up to tribulation, because this one I know you posted, and I wanted to. I'll probably just read the video because it's in a different language. But you posted this one with our not so good friend, Mr. Klaus Schwab of the Economic Forum.
Whoa.
So I'm going to go ahead and play it. I'm going to read what it says there at the bottom because it is in a different language. I apologize for the fuzziness of the video. It's not a very high quality video that we downloaded. But it says here, today at the end of this, it's a news program. They're interviewing Klaus Schwab. He says, we are talking about chips that can be implanted. When will that happen? Certainly in the next 10 years. And at first, we will implant them in our clothes, he says. And then we could imagine that we will implant them in our brains or in our skin. And in the end, maybe there will be direct communication between our brain and the digital world. So we've been talking about this literally for the last 2 years, GJ. Why did you post this one?
I posted it because a lot of people do not believe that these types of things would happen. It's like it's way down the road if it would ever happen. And why would they? And then they'll justify, well, some of this is for good. Well, yeah, there is some good sides to it. However, if you just look at how everything is evolving, anything, and we've said this over and over. I know I said this last week. Anything that can be used for good can also be used for evil, and vice versa. And when you start looking at the hierarchy of the world and why they want to do this, they want to control every aspect of our life. And you say, well, what's that got to do with this show? What's this got to do with anything? Here's why. Because in the tribulation, so Jesus comes back, we call this the rapture. and so I don't know how many Christians that are alive right now, ascend to heaven with Jesus. And so those are the people that are still on earth that are alive. They ascend with Jesus to heaven. So all of a sudden, I don't know, 1 billion people, I don't know how many are Christians when that happens. Well, let's just say 1 billion people go. That's a lot of people, and they want to implement safety. They want to implement security. They want to implement every aspect of life that can be tracked for protection, for safety. And then they end up using it against you. And what we're seeing is people that are in the highest levels around the world are all for these types of things, and they're being implemented in different parts of the world. A lot of times we don't hear about it because they don't want us to know. So to me, it's back, by the way, endtimes.chat. I can't find it. So anyway, they're talking about this front and center. This isn't a conspiracy. This might happen. This is happening. And some of these things are already being implemented. And then some things are actually, a little bit down the road. So a lot of these things by 2030 is the goal for a lot of things. And we're seeing it in all the technology. We're seeing the wave of, technology continue to speed up what can be done and how it can be done, and to the size of things can be done. I mean, right now we've shown many times on the show, the size of a grain of rice can store all this data and communicate, can transmit and receive. So, I mean, that exists right now. And then we're seeing where cars, how cars are being created now, and what they can do they can actually drive by themselves. And, there's places that are already having that implemented. So reason I post it is to show that these things are happening, and they're happening at a much faster rate than most people realize. And a lot of times you can say, hey, this is good. We also know there's an evil side to it. And then after Jesus takes those that are Christians that have given their life to Jesus, they're gone. You'll still have that opportunity, possibly, if you don't die, because there's going to be a lot of chaos. They're going to use these things to control you. And if you don't play along, then they're going to come for you, and then you're going to end up dying. And one of the main ways they're going to do it is beheading with a guillotine. And there's literally guillotines in storage in different countries. I mean, tens of thousands. You can say that would never happen. We never thought a lot of these things would happen, and it's happening. So I'll probably said too much.
Why? So, that's awesome, man. Go for it.
Endtimes.chat.
Endtimes.chat. Speaking of endtimes.chat, Brave New World. What's that? Oh, yeah. You can be sponsored right here on my cup, your cup. Make it happen. Yeah. So I saw this on, I think it was Gateway Pundit. I think is the name of this website. The Gateway.
There was a lot of talk. There was actually a lot of different articles about this.
Yeah, I wanted to pick a news source that everyone would recognize, most people would recognize. But this right here, it talks about credit card companies using special codes to track your gun purchases here. Now, this is here in the United States. We know that in many other countries, I was actually in Ireland and Iceland, and actually in Iceland, the police don't even carry guns. So it's like, some other places, they don't even have the police carry guns. But this is something that credit card companies are starting to use here in the United States, potentially to use a special code to track your gun purchases. So that way they know who you are, where you live, and how much you spent on your gun. Total invasion of privacy, absolutely 100% invasion of privacy, especially when credit card companies should not be collecting that kind of info anyway. But that's a whole other story for another law discussion later. And there's also, GJ, another one that I think you posted. And I'm not sure, did you read this article about the executive order that's a threat to the dollar?
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's supposed to go into effect. A lot of it's supposed to go into effect in December of this year. And it's all designed, so going back to the one is they can track whatever you want, what you're going to spend on. And what Danig used is one example. Well, why? Because they want to control who has, weapons. In this case, it's also about the dollar and being able to go to going to a one. I mean, we're headed to the one world government dollar that everybody uses, and this is another example. I mean, this came out in March, I believe, of this year, and it's to go into effect. I think certain things are, you know, how anything they do in executive order, typically it takes time to implement. So some of it may have already been implemented, but in this case, their goal is to implement these things, starting in December. And how fast will that happen? I don't know. But as we can see across the world, inflation is at an all-time high, and all these different countries, wars, rumors of wars. So it makes sense in a lot of ways, logically. But when you start looking at it at a deeper level, there is evil tied to this and how they can control it. And they can control every aspect of what you do, regardless whether you're a good person, regardless if you're doing everything right. and we're seeing in China that they're already doing these things.
Well, one of the three of the things that this executive order that was signed in March 9th, 2022, and now I have downloaded the actual order, and I'm going to read through it. And I did look through this particular section, so I can confirm that the outcome of what is written here in this article is very, very possible based off the executive order that I wrote. Don't take my word for it. Go and look it up yourself. Executive Order 14067. The three things that could potentially happen from this: legal government surveillance of all U.S. citizens, total control over your bank accounts and purchases, especially the ones without cash because you won't have any, and the ability to silence all dissenting voices. So think about this. They could shut down your banking, or shut down your credit card, shut down your ability to transfer money back and forth because you're a dissenting voice in some aspect. Now, we already saw that happen just a couple of weeks ago. No matter where you stand on the aisle, and GJ and I do not take a political stand here on this show. We have our own thoughts and feelings about it, but we don't take a political stand. So those of you on Facebook land and YouTube, I want you to hear that part right there. But just a couple of weeks ago on a Thursday night, we had our own current administration standing up there saying that he was targeting certain people of our country and saying that they are a threat, an extremist threat to our democracy. So putting that into place, and I also read an article that about 35 to 50 people that are part of the previous administration's leadership are now being investigated by the FBI and getting audited by the IRS. So this stuff's already happening right now. And it continues to happen. This was signed in March 9, 2022. Nobody talked about it. Nobody even knew it happened. Not in the general public. And this is the kind of thing that can happen. This is what this one person, Mr. Ricards, actually said. I'll have to figure out who he is. He's a former advisor to both the CIA and the Pentagon. He said that we're in a major upheaval for the U.S. dollar, he says. In fact, I predict the third great dollar earthquake has already started. The first was Roosevelt confiscating private gold in 1934. I wasn't around for that, but I do remember the history, talking about them bringing all the gold in and storing it. The second was Nixon. Well, I wasn't here. I was with Moses. The second was Nixon. Nixon abandoned the gold standard in 1971. And now there's a new alternative to the U.S. dollar, potentially retiring the U.S. dollar based off of what this is. Now, just like you said, GJ, a lot of people think this can't happen. And that's some far off, as it says here, some far off pipe dream, but it's literally happening as we speak. You did mention
around the world, and a lot of times, and we've seen it here in the States, like a lot of times a state will try typically New York or California, because they have the most people, and like we said, the gateways from the east and the west, they will try something and implement it, and then they'll either modify it, and then it starts to take, and it starts to move towards other states. So just like we're seeing other countries, this is actually happening, and it's more than one country already. So so these things are happening, and whether it happens to the fullest or whatever, we don't know. Well, we do know eventually it does happen.
Well, this one right here, GJ, is one you posted. There are a couple YouTube videos. I don't really have a story to show you, but this was about the Hebrew New Year. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about that. And I'm going to shift over at that point to the message because we got about 10, 15 minutes left.
I think this would be a good segue. So there's another one on 5783. So that has more of a cover photo. So it's a different one. So right now we're in September. We're coming to the end of 5782, which is 5,782nd year of the Jewish calendar. And it always starts at the end of September. So the new year, 5783, will start later this month. And so if you study any of this, you'll start to see prophecy built into this. And if you go backwards, you'll start to see what the meaning of and so he's showing some different Jewish letters there, and they all have meaning. And those, and so you start to put it all together. It's like, oh my gosh. So 5782 was like an awakening. Well, I think we can say we've been awakened, and they're literally talking about it in mainstream media on all fronts. What are we being awakened to? I believe God is awakening and shaking. That's why we talk about earthquakes. That's why we talk about the volcanoes. That's why we talk about the fires. That's why we talk about all the pestilences and the fires and the wars and rumors of war and all these things that are happening. God is shaking things up. So that's an awakening. That's an opening. And then 5783 is actually exposure. So it's exposing good and bad. And if you really dive into it, and I'll stop it after this statement, is that exposing what? Exposing both good and evil. So I believe if you look at a lot of the things that we see here, and I mean, here we are talking about 9/11. I think a lot of people don't know really what happened. Maybe that's one of the areas that gets exposed. I don't know. What I do know is things like that, I believe, are going to be exposed to what really happened. Maybe it's not 9/11, but something like that on a global front, both in the church, in the political world, in the economic world. So pick all the main things. I believe that exposure is going to be happening. The other thing that it says is that those that change for good will be blessed further, and those that don't will actually suffer greater consequences. And you can say, well, that sucks, and it does. However, being awake, turning to Jesus, opening up, and he said, that's not a threat. That's not like God. Why would God would do that? God gives us the opportunities to make choices. God gave us a free will. God gave us the ability to turn towards him. He also gave us the ability to turn away. And right now we're seeing evil at its right in our faces. By the way, you missed one of the things that I thought we should have on there. Is about a show that's coming out. There's a show coming out, and there was a short concert series before one of the football games, because we just started football season, and very satanic symbolism. I don't know if the song was. I just know if you just turn the volume down and just watch, very symbolic to Satanism that's right in our face. There's a TV show about to come on mainstream TV here in the States, and it's about Satan. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. I mean, so it's like right out in our face. Why would that happen all of a sudden? It's been a buildup over years, more, bit by bit by bit. But now Satan's not holding back. Yeah, there's the constant series, and a lot of symbolism there, just like in the Super Bowl a year or so ago. So they use symbolism, and some people say, "Oh, that's just cool. It's dance. It's art." You start understanding there is symbolism to everything that Satan does, and there's symbolism that everything God does. And a lot of times we just don't see it. And if we could see into the spiritual world, we'd have a more understanding of what that really is. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can feel it. And again, it's happening right before us. So I know I veered off a little bit to 5783. So we're about to go into a new year on the Jewish calendar. And I believe a lot of things are going to become public that haven't been public for years or generations. And what are those? I have no idea. I have my thoughts. And, obviously this show, if that happens, we'll talk about it. Back to you.
Back to me.
In times chat.
That's where we're going to be, baby. We've been talking about the 7 letters that Jesus had John write to the 7 churches of that time. There were no more than 7 churches, but he was asking him to specifically write to these churches. And I believe, personally, I believe that the reason why Jesus chose these 7 churches were because of the 7 different things that they were experiencing and going through, the good things and also the things they needed work on. Well, there's one church out of all 7 of those that has nothing negative. He didn't say anything negative about them at all. And so that one is called the Church of Philadelphia. Jesus says in the first verse of Revelation chapter 3, verse 7, he says, write this to the angel of the Church of Philadelphia. This is the message from the one, that's Jesus, who is holy and true. Now, these 2 attributes, holy and true, are used of the Lord in Revelation chapter 6, verse 10, by the martyrs. The martyrs are those people who have been killed for their faith and belief in Jesus and as the Son of God. He was called that by the martyrs who appealed to God regarding his revenge on those who killed them and thought they would get away with it. And here's the thing. God's holiness demands justice to be done. It just does. And the fact that he is true, which means genuine and faithful, demonstrates that his character can be relied upon. Justice will come in God's timing. That's why we have this show, the End Times Chat. We want to talk about the possibilities that are out there, see what's going on in the world. God's judgment is not going to happen just down the road. It's actually happening on many different levels right now. But the true end time judgment that's going to be happening is going to be much more, it's going to be greater than anybody's ever seen on this planet. It's going to be more devastating than you could ever understand. And that's why we want to bring this to you, not to scare you into the kingdom of God and scare you into a relationship with Jesus, but just say, hey, you don't have to be afraid of these things if you give your life over to Christ. Now, here's the deal. The power of Jesus Christ has already won. He's already won. He has the ultimate authority and he has the ultimate control over heaven and the treasures that are there. Because God is holy, which means he will not lie, and because he is true, meaning he is totally reliable, we can trust him to reward us wonderfully when we respond to him. Now, Revelation chapter 3, verse 7 goes on, and that's probably my mother-in-law dropping some stuff off at the front door, ringing the doorbell. Revelation 3:7 goes on. The one who has the key, probably she's calling you too. The one who has the key of David, what he opens, no one can close, and what he closes, no one can open. That's actually my granddaughter. She's coming home. Hold on. Hey, Journey, hold on 1 second. And he says the key of David is referred to. Let me read that back. Revelation 3:7 goes on. The one who has the key of David, what he opens, no one can close. What he closes, no one can open. The key of David is referred to in Isaiah chapter 22, verses 20 to 25. There's a man called Eliakim who was the manager in King Hezekiah's household, and he was able to open and shut the doors that led into the treasures of the king. Well, Jesus is the one who holds the key of David, as it says here in Revelation 7. And he opens and shuts the door into his messianic kingdom. Now, if the door is the symbol of opportunity and entrance, then the key is the symbol of authority and control. Revelation chapter 3, verse 8 continues and says, I know all the things you do. Now, Jesus is talking to the Church of Philadelphia. I know all the things you do, and I have opened a door for you that no one can close. You have little strength, yet you obeyed my word and did not deny me. Jesus knows all of the things that we do that are in obedience to him, and he also knows all the things that we do that are not in obedience to him. This is seen in his words, I know all the things you do. Well, the city of Philadelphia and the church there were located in a strategic city, a gateway to many areas of the ancient world. This was a city dedicated to the spread of Greek language and culture. And what made this group of believers in Philadelphia so special that they would receive such a wonderful encouragement from Jesus? And we're going to find out next time when we chat that he goes on and continues to encourage them. Well, what made these people so wonderful? There are 3 reasons that are given, and they can be strong recommendations and encouragements for us today. Number 1, dependence on the Lord's strength. They were not the strongest Christians. They were not the most influential Christians. They didn't have great numbers of people coming to their church every single day, nor did they have outstanding leaders that had unusual talents. But their quote, little strength brought encouragement from Jesus himself. That explains, GJ, a lot of churches in our world today that are living in humility and a dependence on the Lord's strength. The second thing that he says is they had dedication to God's word. They guarded the word of God in such a way as to bring a commendation from Jesus himself. They were loyal to God, proving the validity of their faith. Obedience to God's word is still the proof of our love for Jesus. And GJ, I mentioned to you a little earlier, John 14:21 and James 1:22-25. Before I get to the third thing, why don't you tell us what Papa Reynolds has to say about either one of those two? And I'm going to put it on mute because Journey's making a ruckus in the background.
Well, as my dad wrote in his Bible, and he wrote a bunch. So I went over to James, and he says, God does not tempt. So if you're being tempted, it is not from him. It is definitely from Satan. And then in James chapter 1, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. And then jump down to 17, verse 17, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. And so my dad wrote several words here. Grace, he talked about grace here, and God forbids partiality or snobbery. Love is the key for overcoming partiality. So again, love thy neighbor as thyself. And sometimes that's very hard, especially when we're seeing wicked things. The one thing is, when I see somebody that's wicked now or doing wicked things, the first thing I think of is like, obviously they've lost their way in some way. And where did that go? Where did they go awry? And it might've been, as a young kid or, whatever. And they still have a shot of being redeemed in God's love, because God wants redemption. He wants you to turn away from sin, turn away from whatever. And some of you may be saying, hey, I've done too many bad things. I don't know what to do. I'm not worthy. You are worthy because God created you. Satan will tell you you're not worthy. Satan will say your identity is something that's not correct. And then a lot of times I see people start to believe these lies that aren't true. So God stands on truth. As Dan said, God is on truth. He is holy and he has grace. So despite all these crazy things that we talk about are going to happen, it's judgment. There's persecution, both from the evil side, and God is saying, hey, I'm not going to tolerate that. It's already forewarned what's going to happen. So we all have that opportunity. And the shaking and the warnings are happening, as Dan said. We're seeing it right now, and that's going to continue to happen. And as we say a lot of times, it says in the Bible, there will be persecution. There will be pestilences. There will be perilous times. And we're seeing that on all fronts. And every week we talk about something. So we're seeing it. We're living it. So for you, you have the opportunity to avoid a lot of this. And Me and Dan know that, hey, we may not avoid it. However, we know that in the end, God is in full control. God has our best interest. And I look at, where am I going to spend eternity? Eternity. That's forever. It's not for a little time. It's forever. It's not a lifetime. It's forever. Where are you going to spend it? Heaven or hell? I choose heaven. I choose heaven.
Amen.
And how do you do that, Dan? If you have a mic on. Oh,
I do. Well, I mentioned there were 3 reasons that were given. And now that you, thankfully, you pushed us right to that level of making this decision. The first one is dependence on the Lord's strength. Dedication to God's word was number 2. The third is devotion to Jesus himself. The Church of Philadelphia were loyal to the name and character of Jesus because they did not deny him in his name. They believed that Jesus is God in human flesh, and that to deny his true nature means that you are not a believer, and that you do not have the Holy Spirit with you. You actually have the spirit of Antichrist. So if that's you today, and you want to grab a hold of dependence on the Lord's strength, be dedicated to God's word, and to be devoted to Jesus himself, and you want to invite Jesus in your heart right now, then you can say that prayer with us, and you can live this life and have the commendations that Jesus gave to the Church of Philadelphia if you do these 3 things. And all you had to do is say this prayer with me. Wherever you are, no matter what you're doing, if this is you, drop whatever you're doing and say this prayer with me. Dear Jesus, we love you. We believe that you are the Son of God, that you came to take away our sin, that you came to make us right so that we can have a relationship with you. We believe that you are the Son of God. We know that you came to die on the cross for us in human form as all fully God and fully man, that you died on that cross, but you conquered over death, hell, and the grave. You rose to life, and that you went to be with your Father in heaven and to give us all an opportunity to have a relationship with God. So, Lord, we accept that. We ask you to come and live in our heart and be a part of our lives, Lord, and give us the strength and the boldness to live it out. Thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
amen.
Woo! Well, hey, we will see everyone next week, and we love you, GJ. I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks, my man. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah. Do you want me to bring a hat? Yeah.
Yes, please do. Anyway, we'll see everybody next week. Love you, and praying for you.